Draft Pod coming at you now. It was tight end week. That's right. Tight ends blowing up left and right. You know that's a need for the Broncos. We've got all sorts of stock reports. Stock up, stock down on some of the biggest names in college football. Talk about some first overall odds, playoff picture, and previewing a big week 8 now. DNVR Draft Pod! We're doing it, baby, live from the Toyota Lounge. That's right. I've got my guy, J-Mike, in the house. J-Mike, we missed you for a couple weeks there.
I know. I felt like I was like standing outside the toy store watching, looking at everybody play while my broke ass couldn't come in.
It's so true. Got some Broncos football tonight, so you'll have to wait for Todd and the boys to come at you a half hour before kickoff there. Big watch party at the DNVR bar tonight. Waiting to hear back on if we got what juicy odds is our custom SGP bet for the Broncos gonna be at. We've got a legend like Ashton Edwards. What a draft name right there. Ashton Genty Donovan Edwards, a real stock up, stock down for the running backs coming into this season.
That sounds like it would be like a creative name for the NFL draft analysts that you would play with on like the NCAA football game or something like that.
That's exactly right. And did I say welcome into the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Ridge Toyota store? Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. Wow, what a time to be alive. What a week we just had, J-Mike.
It's getting real. This feels like this is the most parity we've had in college football in a long time, which has led to some wonky results. It's led to some different breakout stars than I think we probably would have anticipated coming in.
Correct.
It's been awesome. I think on a national level, this is the craziest college football has been since 2007, and that's a good sign. Yeah,
it really is. And yet nothing's decided.
Nothing.
More wide open than any time before, but still a lot to take away. It's a beautiful thing to see all those big matchups and have draft takes after them.
It's nice.
And we'll start with probably the biggest game of last week. We're going to play some stock up, stock down. I'm just going to rattle off like 20 names and we're going to discuss, okay? Because between injuries and big, one-on-one matchups, because between top prospects on each end, there's a lot of movement. And then, as I mentioned in the cold open, we got to talk tight ends and we got to talk offensive and defensive trenches because a lot has happened, and a lot happened just this week. But let's start with the Oregon-Ohio State game. Evan Stewart, the wide receiver from Oregon. Wow, I was impressed. Stock up or stock down?
Stock up, just because best performance of the season with the lights brightest on the biggest stage. I mean, goes for 7 catches, 149, and a tutty, 21.3 yards per catch against Ohio State.
Against a secondary that's basically only NFL guys.
Well, and that's the thing, is he had his best performance against his best level of competition so far. You're starting to see Oregon stretch the field more consistently like they did last year. Obviously, going to be some ups and downs with the quarterback change. Dylan Gabriel coming into a new system. He's starting to figure it out. He's starting to develop some chemistry with Stewart. But, I mean, I was just impressed with how open he was seemingly all day long.
He's twitchy. His contact balance is good. He's competitive for a smaller guy. He's
not
feisty.
Massive, but he'll fight for the ball.
Yep.
A lot to like about what he's doing right now.
Well-built frame. He's a really good speedster. And as Isaiah Bond has kind of gotten hurt and stuff, he's making a real name for himself as someone to consider in that second tier of wide receivers in this draft class.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's playing himself into a spot where, you might flirt with late first round, like early second round type range for a 5'11", 170-pound guy. Like, that's pretty good spot to be at.
Yeah, no, he's a dynamic weapon. He comes in. He's a transfer from Texas A&M. Oregon, so many transfers, man. It's crazy.
Nike money.
True that. And so he had a lot of hype coming into the season. I was a bit skeptical. He flashed earlier in the year, but in the biggest game, he blew up and had an outstanding performance.
I think this was
and he'd
validating.
be awesome in a Sean Payton offense. Sorry to cut you.
No, perfect. I mean, that's where I was going to take it. Actually, it's like, you already got Bo Nix, you got Troy Franklin, obviously that Oregon background, Forsyth. Now you could bring in a guy like Evan Stewart, and not only does he give you an option over the top, but he gives you some options like, you ran that little jet motion play that didn't obviously work on the 2-point conversion, but just giving you more gadget type players, more speed overall, which is something that Sean Payton historically has done a really nice job of taking advantage of. And
100%.
I thought that was a big game for Oregon in general, because I know like they didn't have any losses, but it hadn't felt like they had been dominant against a couple of opponents where you maybe would have hoped to have seen them win a little bit more convincingly. They were kind of leaving some meat on the bones there. And in a back and forth game, some weird calls both ways. I get it. It's just a weird momentum standpoint. I mean, that's as big of a win as Oregon has had in the regular season ever. I think it's their highest ranked win.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm struggling to even go back and think of.
Even in the Mariota years, like did they win those type of? You know what I mean? Like it would feel like, they'd beat like USC when they were down, and Washington wasn't what it was back then.
Yeah, was there a big like Stanford bout when Harbaugh was kind of at his peak?
That's a good point. There's probably some good Stanford games.
But if not, I'm going back to like the LeGarrette Blount punch game, which they lost, right? But as far as like regular season games with that type of hype.
And that's what Oregon had been, though. It's like they were the team that, they won 9-10 games, but the 1 or 2 a year. And last year's a perfect example of it. You had 2 chances at Washington. You dropped both of them.
Lanning's got them playing some real meat and potatoes football, too.
Well, and that's, we're going through this at CSU right now. You had a lot of people that are so used to the flash of the passing offense. And there's something to be said about just out-physicaling a team and being like, try and stop it. And when you can do that consistently, and then you have the speed out wide to then take it over the top, good luck.
Oh, you see it in the trenches. Tez Johnson, one of Bo Nix's favorite wide receivers, is having another really nice campaign with the Ducks. He also impressed me.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be feeling pretty good about everybody on Oregon's side right now. I'm still not a Dylan Gabriel guy inherently, and
Agreed.
I think the gap between him and the quarterbacks of these other top 10 teams that are all going to be right there in the mix, I do wonder, like, is he able to elevate them the way that we've seen some of these other quarterbacks elevate their team? But they've got so much talent everywhere else. They're so good in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I'm not sure it's going to matter.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Joey B in the Toyota chat giving me props. You're the man, Joey B. On the other side of the ball, though, Denzel Burke, Ohio State. I watched that whole cut up. He got torched at every turn, man.
That's what I'm saying. These Oregon receivers were running around with nobody in the picture, and you're not used to seeing that from an Ohio State secondary. And while Ohio State's been solid this year, I still think if you're talking top-end talent, like it's Texas, it's Oregon's in that conversation, Ohio State most certainly in that conversation, they've given up a lot of explosive plays on defense this year. Kent State moved the ball on them a couple of times. Boise State, created, that's Oregon, but you know what I mean? They played a couple of teams this year where it was like, man, that's not the most dominant offense that you're going up against, and you're giving up multiple plays of 40-plus yards.
Well, it's a good point because I stacked my board this weekend, and I don't have any Ohio State Buckeyes with a first-round grade.
Not one? Not on either side of the ball, or are we just talking defense?
Not one.
And coming into the year, they had 2 receivers in that mix.
Right.
You had 2 DBs, a defensive lineman, and Tuamalo. I can't pronounce his name. JT
Tuamalo and Jack Sawyer. Right. And all those guys, they're right there. They're in the mix for top 50, but they are not first round, set it and forget it. That guy's a blue chipper. And Emeka Buka's another guy who's lost a little ground, right, over the years. Quinshon Judkins, I think his stock is down as well. I really think outside of Josh Simmons, the left tackle who transferred from San Diego State, I think he's been there a couple seasons. He didn't finish the game. So they're shut out in the fourth quarter, Ohio State is, or maybe
close to.
Simmons missed basically that entire stretch. He's a guy who's rising and really looks the part. I'd say he's stock up, and I could see him threatening for a first-round grade. The rest of them, though...
You know what Ohio State feels like to me?
That's an expensive roster, Jay, Mike.
One of the most expensive in football.
The edges, like Buka, they had to pay those boys to come back.
Judkins wasn't leaving. Ole Miss has got money. He wasn't leaving for nothing.
Damn straight. Right, and then they got, Downs, Judkins. I mean, some of the best
Howard
players
from
in
Kansas
the SEC.
State.
Yeah.
But do they
Burke,
fit together, though? Like, it feels like...
It's a good question.
You bring in Chip Kelly as OC. You bring in Will Howard at K-State, who may or may not have even been the starting quarterback there going into the year. It's like they added all these pieces, and it feels like a Madden create a team to me, where it's like, yeah, you like all these guys individually, but do you like them collectively as a unit? And I don't know. Ohio State, for all the speed that they have out there, for all the talent that they have on paper, they just don't strike a ton of fear into me right now if I'm an opposing defense going up against them.
What it really is Will Howard.
He's limited as a passer, and he always has been. That's why K-State's been looking for other options for a couple years now.
No, I mean, we watch a ton of college football. He'd be threatening, but he wouldn't be a lock to be in my top 20 most enjoyable or most dangerous college quarterbacks I watch every Saturday.
Not even close, I don't think.
And I mean, Ohio State, for several years, certainly in Ryan Day's tenure, has always had the first or second best quarterback, period. Going back to Burke, though, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, clearly a top tier of cornerbacks in this class. Burke was kind of that next group of guys who could threaten for a first-round pick, what have you. I think even the top 100 might not be a lock now.
You're that down on him? He's not putting together... I mean, the game film is not good this year.
Size is an elite. And even last year, you put on the Michigan tape, he leaves you wanting for more. And it's a cornerback class who, outside of those top two, I don't see a ton of guys who I would pound the table for. One would be Siobhan Revelle, out for the season, East Carolina.
I was going to say he's done.
The other guy would have been Ben Morrison, stud cornerback for Notre Dame. He's the next one I want to play stock up, stock down with, because J-Mike, he's had this outstanding season, but he's now out the rest of the year with a hip
That's
injury.
the Notre Dame corner, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there was I think
Benjamin Morrison, Ben Morrison,
5 team captains, guys that were in the mix for draft went down this past. Torrey Horton, obviously,
brutal.
at CSU. It was
and I'm
brutal
watching
week for
O-line
injuries.
tape, and it's like, wait, where's the left guard I'm supposed to study? Where's the left tackle from Ohio State? So many guys getting pulled. Birch, the top defensive end, who we'll talk about in the next segment for Oregon, he missed the entire game. You're right. Injuries are starting to stack up, and it concerns me.
Man, this corner class is light. You are right.
And
you just start going through the names, and it's like, yeah, he's all right. Takario Davis of Arizona.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I like him.
And
in the
Morrison,
third round, maybe.
Outside of the two corners and maybe Mason Graham, the stud defensive lineman for Michigan, I thought he was kind of my favorite to be the 4th highest ranked defender in this draft class. But now he's got a hip injury.
A lot of guys defensively that we came in pretty high on, where now it just feels like either their stock has dipped or at best it's stagnant. Like a guy like James Pearce, who we're going to talk about from Tennessee, like some of these guys. It's like he still has all the same upside that he had when we talked about him coming in. And do I see a world in which he puts together a hot 6-week stretch and he still ends up being a top 3 pick? Without a doubt. But defensively, not been a stellar year for a lot of these guys. And if Travis Hunter and Johnson have probably done the best, and we already knew those dudes were studs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Morrison, honestly, I'd argue it's stock up.
I would.
I just think he's
especially
consolidated
comparatively.
his spot. Exactly. To even missing the rest of the season, it's fine. And he's so great, man. He's physical, ball skills, off coverage, press coverage, zone, man. They play a ton of man. He's just one of those coverage profiles where it's like, oh yeah, this dude checks off every box. Like any NFL team could utilize him as in your corner rotation.
Do you feel better given that it's a hip and not a knee?
Yeah, I suppose. Hips, though, for
I was going to say for a corner, hip is pretty
important.
Yeah.
And he has very fluid hips. That's
Yeah.
one of his selling points. So we'll have to get more info on the injury for sure. Wow, we only covered 3 guys, but we talked about a lot more. More stock up, more stock down. We're going to get into these tight ends. But first, telling you about Coors Light. Oh, you gotta choose chill. You gotta choose the good times. We're about to talk about some local tight ends. Well, Coors Light, they're local right here, Golden, Colorado. Mountains turn blue, and that brewski is colder than the Rockies when it hits your lips. It is so nice. As I was saying on the last pod, it's like one of the few beers my poor stomach can still digest.
Very, very. It's just a nice,
It goes down
approachable.
easy.
It goes well with food. It's because it's not too heavy. You
And
know.
it tastes like beer.
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of beers today don't taste like beer.
It's damn refreshing, which I love about it. Nothing like choosing chill, saying, hey, now's the time where we're going to relax. We're going to watch some football. We're going to hang out with the kiddo, what have you, and have a nice, delicious, cold Coors Light in your hand. Cold as the Rockies. Make the most of your times to choose chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. You know it. And, of course, our friends at Bet365 got a big Broncos watch party for Bet365 going on Thursday night. Todd in the house. No Sean and the gang in the house. And Bet365, the only place you can sign up using our code DNVR365, and the only place where you will find DNVR's custom bets with our logo right there on their homepage. The boost we all came up with, and then they boosted on top of it for us. You find that in the special SGP section on the homepage. Bet365 has some outstanding sign-up offers right now where they'll match your first deposit up to $1,000 if your first bet doesn't hit, or they will give you $200 in bonus bets if all you do is place a $5 bet after you sign up. All of that when you sign up using our code DNVR365. They're the homies. They're moving their U.S. headquarters to Denver.
Love it. Makes sense why they'd partner with us.
Local AF, just like us, must be 21 plus, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay. Us going long on that, I would have given you like minus 1,000 odds on that. Very predictable. What wasn't very predictable was that one of the best tight ends in the country, yes, Tyler Warren for Penn State. What a tight end too. He's got the flow out the helmet.
He's got the vibes going for sure.
I wish he wasn't rocking 44.
Not a great number.
Yeah.
It's a fullback number.
It's a fullback number. It is. Now, he took direct snaps under center as a Wildcat
Kind of is
quarterback.
an H-back at times.
He snapped the ball and then was the receiver on the very same play. You've all seen it. And then went off for what? 200 plus yards, 17 grabs. It was just an all-time performance.
You don't see that from a tight end.
In college football, we really don't see that much at all.
I mean,
man.
that's a Trey McBride type stat line when
Truly.
they literally have no other
Truly.
options on the field.
Indeed. So yeah, he had a monster performance. Definitely in the top 50 conversation.
Is he your tight end one at this point?
Loveland has lost a little ground for me.
He's a tough one though,
Loveland
because
has lost a
with
little
Loveland,
ground.
it's like, can you
It's a
really
Trey
fault a
McBride
guy when they
situation.
don't have anything else offensively? They're so limited passing the football.
That's right.
It is
But
a Trey, but I mean, Trey put up
Trey went
100
off.
plus targets and
Trey
had 90
was
plus catches.
Breaking records with Todd Centeio throwing the ball to him. Punting the ball with his hands to him. So yeah, tight end one is a really interesting question.
His
upside's really intriguing. He's much more Mike Gesicki than Freiermuth if you're thinking former Penn State
He moves
tight ends.
better.
He moves really nice.
And he's like 6'6", 250.
He's a factor as a receiving tight end.
He feels like a guy who, in a different world, he's a defensive end.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Like,
now they have them coming out of high school as athletes, tight end / edge. Those are my kind of guys. So he's big time stock up. And then I discovered the G5 prospect of the year here. Harold Fannin Jr.
Bowling Green.
H-back fullback for Bowling Green. He has just gone off this season. Already 700 yards on the year.
He's like having a Gianti type stat line.
He truly is.
Former, I think he started somewhere else. I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, find it for us.
Yeah.
He's undersized. So most places are ranking him as the top fullback, not even like one of the top tight ends. He's in the Evan Ingram, like undersized, do-it-all weapon. He reminds me of like an undersized David Njoku more than anything. Like boxy, explosive, like packs a punch, yak machine.
I like that comp because he's got the yak ability.
Yeah.
Njoku
was fun at Miami, but it was very like kind of hit or miss. Like,
shoot, he's had fun moments in the NFL.
He sure
I'd take him
yes.
better than anything Denver's had in the last 5 years. 6'4", 230 is what he's listed at, which means he's probably more like 6'2", 215 in actuality.
right.
So yeah, I mean he lacks the size of a prototypical NFL tight end.
It's like Anquan Bolden sized.
At some point though, I mean you look at these 9 for 135, 12 for 193, 8 for 145, 11 for 137.
Oh, he's going up. And look
5
at some
receiving
of the opponents
touchdowns
he's
already.
torched.
And A&M, Penn State, like he's not doing this against nobody. So we're not in a MAC play yet.
No, learn the name Harold Fannin Jr. Boy, I could go for him and another of the tight ends in this class.
That'd be awesome. He's a guy that gets open and he catches the football. It's a novel concept, something we haven't seen a whole lot of here.
It's so true. Yeah, you're at the stadium too, so you really get that all 22 view. You see how unwide open they are. Mason Taylor for LSU. The broadcasters said Jason Taylor's son.
I believe that's true.
Yeah. I'm going with it, but don't put words in my mouth. It's a bad game of telephone. I won't be held accountable if that's
He doesn't
incorrect.
look like him. I'll say that.
Didn't want to go there, G-Mike, but agree. My spidey senses were tingling on that one. You know what I'm saying? But no, he was a big part of the comeback against Ole Miss. He's a phenomenal receiving tight end. He's another guy that should be in our mix, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went top 50, frankly.
Well, he's got the size, he's got the build. I mean, you can talk yourself
Receiving
into it.
ability, pedigree, LSU. Checks off all the boxes.
And he's going to have a chance here over this second half of the season to play in a lot of big games where, we talk about...
Exactly.
We talked about Oregon and, Evan Stewart showing up when the lights are brightest. Like Mason Taylor, especially in a class that is intriguing, but you don't have a Brock Bowers. You don't have a guy, a Pitts where it's like, this is our tight end one without a doubt. I do think Loveland is still tight end one. I could totally see a world where Mason Taylor is a top 50 pick, and even top 40.
Love him in Denver. Oscar Delp for Georgia was really high on him coming into the season. I was personally. He's getting some moments blocking. It's still that 2 tight end system for the Dogs. He's just not been up to snuff. And with these other guys rising up, he's a definite stock down.
God, I mean, how many times this year have you turned on a Georgia game and you hear them talking about the loss of Brock Bowers and the loss of McConkey, and these guys don't get open the same way that those guys always seem to be open.
It's showing, and the O-line they don't have
that next level juice.
Also, by the way, 2 years ago, we said Todd Monken's absence will start showing up, and last year it didn't really show up. But as we always say, sometimes these have more like long
2-3 year
term.
impact.
Yes. I think we're starting to see that,
especially when you have veteran quarterbacks and they can basically just play their style of play. Like it's like you see it in basketball too, and in college especially. Like you've got a team with a bunch of 4th and 5th year guys. You're really going to change the system on them,
right? Exactly. Colorado tight end stock way up. Gunnar Helm, Texas. He was one of the stars of the Red River rivalry. He's a really dynamic yak option.
Great name too, if we're talking tight end vibes.
Yes. Inglewood, I want to say.
I believe so.
And
I'm gonna look that up.
And then another Oregon guy, Terrence Ferguson. And I
feels
think
like he's been there for about 10 years.
Littleton, I know, I thought so too. And yet he doesn't seem like he's insanely old when I was looking him up.
Gunnar Helm out of Cherry Creek.
There you go. But yeah, those are two kids who talk about Broncos fits. Stay local. Get yourself a Terrence Ferguson or a Gunnar Helm.
You missed on Trey McBride a couple of years ago. Come back around.
That's exactly right.
Ferguson's got great size. I mean,
oh yeah, he's like physical.
I'd like to see it a little bit more.
Would be amazing
consistently from him.
Yes.
And that's kind of the problem with all these guys is you like the upside on all of them. They've all flashed. None of them have been outside of the Bowling Green kid from like a week to week. You know, you can plug and play. He's going to get 8 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown today. But yeah, Ferguson, especially another guy too. You know, when we talk about having an opportunity down the back half of the season to really elevate your profile, Oregon's going to be in a lot of big games. Like they need these tight ends, especially because they don't have, you know, as much as we like Evan Stewart, you know, they don't have a Marvin Harrison Jr. out there at wide receiver, a true like game breaker, all 3 downs. He's a guy I think that has a chance to play his way into that top 3 tight end mix.
And be a really dangerous like red zone weapon, you know?
Denver hasn't had a tight end like him in 10 years.
Yeah, it's not great. It's really not great.
Guy you could just throw it up to. It's mismatch nightmare.
Oh.
What are you going to do? You're going to put a DB on him? He's too small. You're going to put a linebacker on him? He's too slow.
It'd be glorious, honestly. Let's get into James Pearce Jr. Switch from tight ends to some of the top defensive linemen in this class. Tennessee's superstar edge rusher. The knock on him coming into the season was he was a part-time player. Yeah. He wasn't even like a set and forget starter at Tennessee. Everyone expecting big things. Well, his numbers are way down. And yet coming off this week, he's the Senior Bowl's defensive player of the week with a half sack. But the production came in other areas. That Tennessee defense also very good. They used to be a turnstile. Now they're really good. That D-line is really good. And he kind of just looks like a guy.
I struggle when I watch Tennessee right now because I do think teams are doing a lot of things schematically to try and avoid him. I think he's facing a lot of doubles. They're running away from him. I think there are probably, and I'm going to have to, especially as the season goes on, and Saturday will be a great opportunity against Alabama to lock in on him and see what he's doing. But he's not popping. He's not having those plays where he's in the backfield like he was a year ago.
Yep.
I think some of it has to do with what teams are doing, but also I think, you know, like he's just, like you said, kind of looking like a guy out there right now. Like he's not looking like that dominant individual that could just take over. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. I want to see it because, I mean, a sack or 2 sacks, I guess, 1 sack and 2 half sacks at this stage of the season. Given their schedule, I mean, Florida, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kent State, NC State, those aren't world beaters at O-line.
No, they are not. And it's 4.5 tackles for a loss. He had 14 last year. So well behind pace. And last year as a part-time player. So it's a tough one to gauge because it's like in some ways, I think he's playing more. I think he's rounded out his game.
He looks more complete.
And we're just as intrigued by the flashes as we were a year ago. In other ways, I think he's lost a little ground. Yep.
Well, yeah, because I think in the preseason, the conversation was like, could this guy be the number 1 pick? Could he be a top 3 pick?
Correct.
He's not that right now.
Nope. He really isn't. We've got a lot of top O linemen and a few other defensive linemen I want to get into. And then we've got odds for the number 1 overall pick. J-Mike and I feel like we're taking crazy pills when we see those. All on the other side of this. You know what it is. It's Draft Pod and it's Cane's Chicken. All off season, all season. You think draft? I'm drooling thinking of some delicious cooked to order, hand battered chicken fingers, nice and tender on the outside, nice and crispy. Tender on the inside, crispy on the outside. And then you know what it is. Cane sauce, Texas toast, slaw it up. And And, get like a delicious iced tea, sweet tea.
Hit that
from
sweet
Cane's.
tea. Nobody's got sweet tea like Cane's.
Me and the boys went a couple weeks ago. Oh, it was glorious.
I know. I
was
saw
really
the
good.
pictures. Felt left out there.
Yeah, I know.
I
just
get
kind
it.
of came about. I missed you. I felt guilty about it because Cane's is such a thing for the draft boys here. It can be a thing for you too. For cook to order, hand battered chicken fingers. Race in to Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers, and get them even faster by ordering online at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love, y'all. And you know what it is. It's the fall. It's event season at DNVR. Tonight, come one, come all. Get that QR code scan. Go to thednvr.com/events and get in on the fun at the watch party. Our Broncos watch party at the DNVR bar right here tonight. All sorts of other amazing events. Broncos tailgates where you can see J-Mike often. All sorts of great food, great times. Right there by the stadium in the back lot from Sports Fan, where you can get some great Broncos gear too.
It's sweet. Like if you need a nice little hat, it's really the perfect setup because you're right across the stadium. From the stadium, but you're outside of the chaos because, like, right outside the stadium, there's so much going on. There's so many people walking around. It's a total pain.
Yep.
We're right across the street. You got food, got drinks, got good times, good people. Don't miss out.
No doubt. And then Nuggets Avalanche takeovers coming up. Go to thednvr.com/events and check all of that out. I see Jorge Puentes here in the chat saying Draft Banks Jr. and the tight end from Texas, going all Texas. Well, Kevin Banks is on my stock up, stock down list. Let's go to him because while he's having a good season, dare I say it's stock down.
Why? What has not stood out to you?
So coming into the season, we all watched the Texas tape ad nauseum, Quinn Ewers and the wide receivers, Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, right? Their right tackle was a prospect, so we were all prepped. I was like, oh, yeah, Kevin Banks, he's been a stud for years. Set and forget top 10 guy. And as we always do, then the actual draft cycle comes up. You're actually put under the microscope. And, his size isn't elite. His height isn't elite. In pass pro, he's one of those guys that's always a little like bent forward. He's always in attack mode, right? Ready to get you. And I just think of we always talk about more linear kind of offensive tackles, the Joe Walsh, who just look like a tight end who outgrew the position by 2 inches and is just 40 pounds heavier, but looks just as slim as he did at 260 pounds. And then you have those boxier offensive tackles. Penei Sewell in some ways is a little boxier.
A little bit.
Remember Ikem Ekwonu, top pick for the Panthers, and NC State guy hasn't quite worked out. Boxier tackle. Kevin Banks is a boxier tackle, and word around the street with that profile is he'd be better off moved inside.
The counter is like the Slaters of the world, though, right? Who face similar type criticism coming in. And
Skoronski.
Peter Skoronski, another great example.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
There is something to be said about the reps he's getting in this league at tackle and how it should train. Like, he's not getting torched. I think the question is what is his ceiling from here? And I don't know how much higher it is.
That's exactly right. Now, beast of a run blocker.
Mauler.
Great anchor. Great power to him in pass pro. And he's a guy who, okay, we can try him at left tackle, but that doesn't work out. Even with less than ideal size, I really like him as a right tackle to kind of be driving our...
I do too.
Right. And then, as a right guard or a left guard, forget it, man. Like, this is a guy with a really high grade if that's where we're projecting him. So it's all relative, right? And Will Campbell's another guy who I think has lost some ground. Because, again, we all watched the Malik Neighbors, the Jaden Daniels tape, and we're like, dang, this left tackle doesn't let anyone by. But his arms are a little shorter. He doesn't have elite size. He doesn't have elite power. And it's just like compared to other top-ranked offensive tackles coming into a draft, think guys like Andrew Thomas who are just like football Adonises.
Just massive.
He's just a notch below in a lot of those, right? He doesn't tick elite. And his arm length is supposed to be really short. To me, he's more of a Skoronski, where it's like, don't overthink this. He's been playing left tackle at this level.
3 years now.
Right. Now, you put on the South Carolina tape this year, you see some guys get inside on him, and that's where having that extra length helps.
Well,
It's margins. It's the
and
old
the
margins
edge rushers
combo.
are only that much more dynamic in the NFL. So
Yeah. Also, it's like, I don't think there's another position in the world of sports where a guy can win 90 plays and he loses one, and we're like, dude, that guy's a bum.
out.
Yeah. Couldn't protect the passer on that one rep against one of the best edge rushers in the world. Bum. Like, the standard is so absurdly
But that's
high.
the difference.
That's right.
I mean, like you said, it's a margins conversation. So let me ask you this. Who feels more like a fit for Denver? And I don't want to sidetrack this conversation too much because we've got a lot of guys to get into here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, especially with the McGlinchey situation and not really knowing what his future is, like,
Yeah,
I like the
Bosa's
idea
no
of
spring
bringing in
chicken.
a guy like Kelvin Banks because while he might not be a world beater, I don't think he's going to be like your franchise-defining left tackle. I think there is a world in which he's a very competent starting left tackle, and if nothing else, he should be an above-average right tackle.
Yep.
And, I mean, he could be elite inside if you found other guys.
Correct.
Do you like him as a Denver fit more so than Campbell? Because Campbell,
I probably do, but to be honest, system fit wise, I think Sean Payton probably wants a bigger tackle regardless.
That was my kind of question is I don't really know if any of these guys fit what they need at the moment.
You want to run that power scheme? It's more Cameron Williams, the right tackle for Texas.
Yeah.
Big boy. Yeah. It might be Josh Simmons,
the
the left tackle for Ohio State. It might be Josh Connerly Jr. at Oregon, who's really stepping up as their left tackle. Might even be Ernest Green III, the left tackle for Georgia. So I think those would be some of your options. Those guys, though, are the more toolsy upside guys in this class.
As in they're raw at the moment?
As in, it's easier to see them with some develop. The tape might not be as clean.
I gotcha.
The pedigree might not be as...
But the upside's there.
But the upside is there. The margins they have been able to kind of close.
I'll say
better.
with Green, when you're that big and you move that well, that might be a situation where it's like, just don't overthink it. If you get him with a quality O-line coach, refine his technique a little bit, you can't teach what he does have, and you can teach the issues that he has. Like,
Also,
you can refine that.
As a redshirt freshman, you're just the starting left tackle at Georgia, and you're basically like no issues whatsoever.
I mean, what really impressed
nuts,
me
man.
in that Bama game in particular, if you watch the first quarter,
Yes.
Bama's getting home left and right.
Yes.
They're in Beck's face. He's making bad decisions with the football. In so many ways, that Georgia offense looked human in a way that we have not seen. They looked like mortals.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, in the second half, Bama stops getting home. They give Beck a little bit of time. They start hitting on some pass plays. They start running the ball with consistency. I thought their ability to keep Beck upright, while Bama was sending a lot of pressure, because, I mean, they were just getting torched. So they were like, fuck it. Like, we're just going to send some pressure and see if we can get home. They ended up getting the pick late. But for the most part, he was really good in that second half. And that really stood out to me. For a redshirt freshman in that moment, it was saying something, especially like, you're down double digits and like they're going to pin their ears back and come at you.
His Bama game last year was really impressive too. He's a kid, Cali kid, St. John Bosco. He's rated as one of the top 3 highest rated interior offensive linemen.
Oh, interesting.
Comes to Georgia,
And then they move
injured
him
year
out.
1, red shirt, and then he's started at tackle ever since.
Well, I like that
And
he
I
has
actually
maybe a
think-
background with the interior, because worst case, again, like
Right,
if this guy
right.
doesn't pan out, like he could just be a world beater of a left guard.
And when I did that background research, he's listed at 6'4". I swear he looks bigger.
He looks taller than that.
Yeah, no, he looks like a mammoth guy. We've got this stupid
fly.
fly flying around. Odds to go first overall, J-Mike. Let's get into that, and then we'll start previewing the picks for this upcoming week. So, leave us a thumbs up, please. And Jose nailed it. It's a BVP jersey that J-Mike has on. That's a true find right there. Right now at Bet365 and most books, Carson Beck still the odds-on favorite to be the first overall pick, plus 600, tied with Quinn Ewers.
I don't
think either of them are the top guy.
Quinn Ewers, I think you could make the logic based on like they're the number one team in the country, the number one quarterback on the number one team. He used to be the highest rated high school recruit. Like, you know,
the arm's huge.
He's got all the arm talent.
Good,
Like if Texas runs the table, they win a natty, and Ewers is great in those games. I can see a world in which Quinn is the number one pick. If Georgia wins the national championship this year, I don't think it's because of Carson Beck.
His placement's really tough, but he has been throwing the ball better lately. It's just going to be tough to get those two Bama games out of our heads.
I mean, I guess you credit him for coming back. I think the ability to get them back in that game, that says something. Yeah. I think also, though,
it's a lot of back shoulders.
Real bad in that first quarter.
Truly, man.
The decision making wasn't there. The accuracy wasn't there. The ball placement hasn't been there. It wasn't there last. Like the receivers just have to work harder than they do with guys like Shedeur or Quinn Ewers. Like they consistently are doing a lot of the work that I think Beck kind of lacks. And I think there's a lot to like. Like I think he's a smart guy. I know I just ripped his decision making in the Bama game, but I think for the most part, like he's been a guy that executes that offense really well.
Yeah. He takes what they give you.
I just keep coming back to like, what would you pound the table for Carson Beck to justify the number one overall pick?
No, I think Shedeur plus 900 is a better bet. I think Cam Ward plus 1,000 and Jalen Milroe plus 1,000 are better bets.
Is it?
And Jose is asking, if it's the Panthers, they have to go QB, right? Yes. I do think they have to go QB. It could be the Patriots, and Travis Hunter plus 700 becomes intriguing. Most scenarios, you're probably trading out of that pick for the quarterback, and I think it's a quarterback class that's going to produce enough intrigue for that to happen.
I still think a QB goes number one just because that's where we're at. I don't think
it's Carson Beck, though.
But I don't think it's Beck. I think I like Ewers better. I like Milroe better. I like... If we're talking NFL potential and ceiling, I just think you talk yourself into the athleticism of Milroe. I think you talk yourself into the throwing ability and the accuracy of Shedeur. I think Ewers has got the better arm. I mean,
I'll tell you what, rewatching that Bama-Georgia game, there is no way you come out of that watch thinking Beck is the superior quarterback prospect. None.
Not
impossible.
Unless look, Milroe still has catastrophic negative plays, and that's the problem. You saw that this past week against South Carolina, the safety, and then he compounds things with an interception on just a horrible decision. You can't do that.
He might be lacking some of the basics for even a reasonable, survivable NFL quarterback. Frankly, like
right
the
now.
Tight window throws aren't
not
consistently enough.
Yeah. Well, no,
I also
the fact that he's even in this conversation is a testament to the growth he's had as a passer. So.
Also, I think it's fair to say, since Kirby Smart has taken over and Georgia's defense has just become an NFL factory, and there's just crazy talent on that defense at all times. There's no way I've seen any quarterback run away from those Georgia defenders the way Milroe was.
He might be the fastest player in college football.
Yes.
And that's not hyperbole.
Correct. Yes. No, so he's a freak.
And especially when you see the success that like Jaden Daniels is having with Washington right now, very similar profiles of like guy that flashed athletically from the beginning, needed to put it together as a passer more consistently, needed to show, it can't all be improvisation. But man, athletically, he runs like a receiver, and he's got a deep ball like Ewers.
Yeah, no, 100%. Jose talking about if the Pats were picking first, they might stay there for the safe move and get the best left tackle.
Their O-line is but you could trade, if you're the Pats at that point, you could trade back to 2 or 3, still get the best tackle and add a first-round pick, probably.
Exactly. Also, they'll have a ton of cap. Like, I just don't think the first overall pick is often just the best guy.
Well, and like I'm not sure there's a tackle this year that's like you don't have a Joe Thomas
we just went through that
generational prospect of where
exactly.
There are a lot of teams that are going to need a tackle, and there'll be probably 2-3 tackles that go top 10. Yep. I don't know if any of them are going top 3 though.
100%. 100%. So that's where we're at. It's an interesting combo.
We're halfway through the season, so if I just said, and this is obviously just your gut, and so much can change, like injuries and all that, but it's almost November. Who's the number 1 pick right now? And we don't know the team, which makes it hard, but if you just had to gut based on what you've seen?
I think it's Shedeur Sanders, and I think he pulls an Eli Manning and like handpicks his team. Or like gets out of not being selected by the Panthers. I can tell you that isn't a matchup that's happening.
Do you like where would be the best fit for Shedeur, in your opinion, now? And this is a whole another long conversation that we can go more in depth on in the future.
I mean, especially since you kind of assume one of the teams in the mix has probably fired their head coach.
If not all of them.
Uh-huh.
Because who are the teams that are going to be in the mix there? It'll be Carolina, it'll be
Panthers,
the Panthers,
Raiders.
the Jaguars, the Raiders.
Yeah, Jags I wouldn't see making that move. I mean, the clear choice of those is the Raiders.
Are you out on Lawrence? Just a little aside.
I'm concerned. I don't think I'm out.
He feels like he could be the next Sam
flashes.
Darnold, where it's just get him in a different system. He needs a change of scene.
Yeah, and I think he's already done better than Darnold ever did at his previous
Initially,
stops.
yeah.
You know, tough though. Jose says Giants. Giants could be a great fit
for Shedeur. I mean, he loves the spotlight.
Dable could save his job.
Dallas or New York definitely. I feel like
Dallas would also be but like a lot would have to happen for that.
Well, they got to move Dak obviously at that point, but I think it's on the table.
No, I hear you. All right, we're gonna switch gears and get into some picks because we got some big ones.
I think Ewers is the number 1 pick right now, just for the record.
I might have agreed with you a week ago. The start to the Red River left me.
You got to remember his first time he'd been in there in about a month.
I know, but
I'm just looking forward to this. Is he even the best quarterback on the roster conversation? Which I think is a legitimate one.
Exactly. Okay, let's start with the picks. We're gonna go biggest game on.
Going big game hunting.
Yeah, Georgia at Texas.
On.
Texas -5. It's the 2 quarterbacks who are odds-on favorites. It's 3 of the 6 top offensive tackles. You've got some really good DBs and edges. Malachi Starks is in this game. We'll see if Isaiah Bond, Gunnar Helm. I mean, everywhere you look, it's prospects. Broncos fans want to tune into this one. J-Mike, is this just Texas all the way? Has Sark earned the right to just assume he can smoke an opponent of this caliber at home? Or is there still some skepticism?
For me, it's less about skepticism regarding Sark and more about the respect that I have for Kirby Smart in Georgia. I do think they have dipped a little bit. I mean, just relatively from where they were at the last couple of years.
Yes.
That's still consistently been the best program now for a half decade. And the amount of speed they have defensively, like you see a world in which if Texas has a slow start, Georgia gets up, then they can run the ball. I
know, but
I
they
would
don't
be nervous.
Run it great this
No,
year.
they haven't consistently. And Texas has been so good defensively. They're number 1 in stop rate in the country. I like Texas to win. 5 points is a little rich for my blood, so I like Georgia to cover, but Texas to win.
Interesting. I feel like a bit of a fool But I just think the last couple years, Texas has shown me so much.
They've been really good in those big moment games.
The big games.
If you win, I personally believe Texas is the best team in the country this year. I believe that preseason. Obviously, they smoked my alma mater, but they've only validated that since. This, though, is a different type of game.
Yeah,
and if you win this one, that puts Texas in a different tier, I think, of program. Like where, with the jokes for years, is Texas back? Is Texas back? Texas has been back now for about 2 years, but that's a different type of. That's like, oh no, not only are they back, but they are the premier brand in college football right now.
And what I've seen thus far, if there was one team I would say they're a little different. They are kind of in a tier of their own. It would be them.
Me too.
No, I think I'm taking the Longhorns to cover.
They're daring you to take Georgia, which I think the smart pick is probably just trust your eyes and trust what Texas has done.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you do. I mean, Georgia does this to squads, right? You think they've looked so good, and then Georgia kind of humbles you and makes you realize
that's the thing.
It's a different barometer.
And it's really just about my respect for Kirby Smart than anything else.
For sure. Bama at Tennessee. We get to see a really good D-line against a really good O-line. You get to see Nico go against Jalen Milroe. Aside from that, though, Bama's a 3-point favorite going to Tennessee. And I think they have a nice little talent advantage here.
This is a prove-it game for Bama.
Bama's had a couple close ones that you didn't expect, including the all-time upset against Vandy.
Vandy's for real. They just went on the road and beat Kentucky.
Vandy's very good.
But yes, I mean, obviously, if you want to be a national championship contender, that's not the type of game you can lose. I mean, to me, it comes down to, can you get stops defensively? Because they've been very leaky in that secondary.
Yep.
And they've given up a lot of big plays. Offensively, they've been explosive. That hasn't been the issue. But you're going into as hostile of a setting as you'll face. Tennessee fans are loud. That's not an easy place to play.
It's at least a 1:30 game.
I was going to say, I'm glad it's not a night game as a Bama supporter.
Yep.
I'll take Alabama because I think they're due and I think they're better than what they've shown. But I hate this spot. And I would rather be underdogs in this game. I'm actually surprised they're 3-point favorites on the road.
I think it's a modest spread. I don't think Tennessee's at that level, frankly. I think they've had some close calls against Oklahoma and Florida, and those look like better wins than they actually are.
Agreed.
Like those two teams are kind of in shambles. And Bama, I think, has just been in a tough spot of looking ahead to this type of game and not playing their best against Vandy and South Carolina, right?
Yeah, they ended up pulling that one out against South Carolina. But, I mean, they blew a lead. They had no business. Milroe did not play well in it.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, give me Bama. I think they kind of beat them by double digits.
I take Bama as well.
But that Tennessee defense is for real. And, for example, the total, that's where I'm a little more bullish. 57's too high. Give me under 57.
Yeah, I think this will be more of a grinded out, older style SEC game than the Georgia-Bama type game we saw a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely. We've got a super chat coming right up. LSU at Arkansas. Tigers 2.5-point favorites. Somehow LSU still ranked top 10, still 5-1, even though they've had close call after close call.
I'm kind of in on LSU.
Are you? Now, Nussmeier is getting some real buzz. We'll get into that in another show.
They made me some money last week. Granted, they're just one of those teams. If you can get LSU at plus money,
the Magic at night.
It's gone. They're a front runner.
Was
and it's just one of those. If you can get plus money in Baton Rouge on principle, you should probably just take that every time. It's like Mahomes as an underdog this week. If you can get that, just bet on it because he's going to win more times than not, and the values are there.
Yeah.
Arkansas is really tough. They play hard, but I think that was a big win for LSU. And I think quietly we're going to look up at the end of the year and they're going to be 10-2, 11-1, and kind of knocking on the door of the playoff.
Offense is good.
Defense is suspect.
Yeah, but probably better than last year. You wish Harold Perkins wasn't hurt, but who knows? Maybe that helps them. Arkansas kind of flying under the radar, but pretty good. I think this might be a letdown for LSU, though.
It is classic. Like, you just got the big home win. Now you're going on the road against a team that's going to want it.
I think it's a letdown spot. Nebraska at Indiana. Indiana at home, 6.5-point favorites. These are two massive surprises in the Big Ten this year.
Kirk, what is it, Cincinnati or whatever, came over from
Signetti. Yeah,
Signetti.
JMU, and brought a bunch of players, including the quarterback.
He wins.
He does. As does Matt Rule.
Yeah, I like Nebraska money line.
Yeah, I kind of think Indiana's run ends here.
I just think that Nebraska front seven is such a different test than what Indiana's had to go up against so far. Super fun story. I think they win 8-9 games. But I still think, especially in the trenches, there's kind of a difference between them and the rest of the top level Big Ten teams. But hell of a start and a really fun story.
Best prospect matchup, probably Miami at Louisville. Cam Ward and the Hurricanes keep eking them out. 4.5-point favorites on the road to the Cardinals here.
Oh, man. It's hard to trust Louisville. I mean, they started hot, and then they lose some games they shouldn't have. Miami's been such a roller coaster, though. It feels like they have pull it out week after week. They could very easily be a 3-loss team right now.
It's the Cam Ward experience in full.
I will hesitantly back the Canes because I think the big moments have brought out the best out of Cam Ward. But I do think if they go down early again, like they have a couple of times now, that's a recipe for disaster on the road. And at some point, that is going to catch up to them.
Agreed.
Like, you can't just keep doing this every week. Throwing a dumb pick early, offense just looks lackadaisical. We're down 17. Yeah. I guess we'll turn it on.
For sure. No, I agree. Yeah, I wouldn't bet this one, but I think, gun to my head, I'd go Louisville on the spread here. Keaton Robley in the Toyota chat with a super chat saying the crackerback is going to go off this week. Let's go Broncos. Riley Moss for Defensive Player of the Week.
Doing wonders for the brand.
Incredible. Yeah, and if Pat's back, then Riley can really cook.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer Riley Moss as not Defensive Player of the Week because that means he was probably the number one corner tonight.
It's true.
But, I mean, not necessarily. Maybe Pat's out there and he's so locked down that creates opportunities for Moss.
Olave, Rashid Shaheed, some real injury concerns with that wide receiver course, so maybe he's fine as your cornerback one. He's been amazing.
He's good.
It's so beautiful to watch that Broncos secondary with two like outstanding corners like that.
Best it's been since the no-fly zone.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's been a delight to watch. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for tuning in. Leave us a thumbs up on the way out. More draft takes, updates, you name it, coming to you next week, probably with more of us. Enjoy the Broncos. Go Broncos. Come to the bar if you can. Until then, love you guys. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.